Hi everyone, welcome to our second week of PIO. I hope that you all had a chance to watch the videos from last week and were able to learn some new content to help you along your parenting journey. We're going to begin this week by taking a second to identify our emotions and how we're feeling. Take a look at the worksheet and jot down how you're feeling today. Today, I feel really excited because I can't wait to share all of this new content with you guys. Before we jump in, if you haven't already, you can rewatch our emotion regulation video that we showed in our last lesson. This is a great thing to implement into your daily routine. The first topic that we're going to jump into is effective listening. Some of our takeaway messages for effective listening include: practicing effective listening skills can improve your relationship with your child and your child's other parent or caregiver. And effective listening is just as important to good communication as effective speaking. They both involve cooperation, the expression of empathy, and negotiation. Each week, we will offer 2 examples of learning goals. By the end of the 12 weeks, you will be required to have 12 total. During the weekly lessons, you can choose to do one or both of the learning goals that are offered. You can turn to your second learning goal page and write down a goal that you might have in regards to effective listening. Some sample learning goals include: I would like to be able to listen to my son's dad in a way that invites him to say more and not shut down. If this situation relates to your specific family dynamic, this might be a good example for you. Another option is: I would like to be able to practice showing empathy to help cultivate my relationship with my child. We're going to talk a lot more about what empathy looks like, and if that's something that you'd like to learn more about, this could be a great goal for you. Go ahead and take a second and write down your learning goal for today. Now that we've thought about some things we want to learn for this lesson, let's jump into some content. We're going to start off by watching a short video.
Try to see things my way.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
Yeah, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See,
out.
you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... sometimes it's like there's this achy... I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. Ow. If you would just...
Don't...
As we saw in that video, at first the husband wasn't able to truly listen or focus on what his wife was saying because he was only thinking about the most obvious thing, the nail in her head. He so badly wanted to solve the problem, but sometimes people simply need others to just listen and validate their emotions, even when there may be a solution that seems really simple or really obvious. Not everyone is ready to hear that solution. What can be more valuable in that moment is understanding and empathy. Now we're going to put that knowledge to use in creating our own conversation plan. You can open your purple workbook to page 2.1.2. Before we begin to fill this out, I want you to think about a conversation that you may need to have with someone in the near future. Maybe you have a request or a question to bring to their attention. This could be your boss at work, a caseworker, or a co-parent, or anyone else in your life. If you aren't able to think of someone, you can think back on a conversation in the past that didn't go as planned and use this plan to think about how you may do it differently in the future. The example I chose to use is to change my schedule at work. So in order to do that, I need to have a conversation with my boss. I'm now going to go through the sequence of questions on this worksheet that we should be considering before we have these conversations. You can follow along as I answer each question. You may choose to pause the video after each question to give yourself time to think and fill out your own worksheet, or watch the whole thing and then fill it out at the end. As you can see at the top of this worksheet, question 1 says, describe a difficult conversation you have been experiencing with your child's caregiver or DHS coworker. This can be extended to anybody in your life, just as I used the example of talking to my boss. When we're thinking about this, we want to identify what is the specific request that we have. In my situation, I would like to ask my boss if I can change my hours at work to be able to spend more time with my child. Number 2 says, describe how this situation makes you feel. Describe how the situation feels throughout your body. For this one, I really want you to think about when you picture yourself in that situation, what are you physically feeling like? Oftentimes, we can be really good at naming our emotions, but we can also get a lot more insight when we think about how we're feeling. In my situation, my chest starts to feel tight and I can feel my face get flushed and red. Number 3 says, write an I feel when statement that tells what you feel and why without blaming the listener. This connects back to what we talked about last week when we identified an emotion and then connected it to a specific circumstance. For example, I said in our last lesson, I feel frustrated when I can't stay focused. That's the same thing you're going to practice here. In this situation, I feel concerned that I won't be able to spend as much time with my daughter as I would like. Number 4, put yourself in the listener's shoes. What do you think he or she may be feeling? She may be feeling stressed about how my request will affect the company and the other employees. This is a great time to practice that empathy. Think about how what you're saying could potentially create a certain emotion in the person that you're speaking to. Number 5, write a statement that you could say to the listener that shows you have empathy for what he or she is going through. Now that you've identified how that person might be feeling, what are words that you could say to them to show that you understand how they're feeling? In my situation, I acknowledge that my request for asking to change my schedule at work could potentially require some extra flexibility on behalf of the staff, which could lead to some added stress. So I'm pointing out that I do know that by asking this, it's going to require people to change their hours around, and that might be stressful for a few people. Number 6, write a goal statement that starts with I and tells the listener what you want to have happen in the future with this situation. Include what you are willing to do in order to make that happen. My specific request is, I would like to have Friday afternoons off from work, and in exchange, I hope to be able to work longer hours on Tuesday evenings. I am more than happy to make up those hours on another day instead of Tuesdays if it would be more convenient for the team at work. This is your time to be very specific about what it is that you need and what you can do to help make that happen. Now that we've done a brainstorming session and outlined some of the things that we want to consider before having a conversation with someone, we're going to put all of this together into an actual paragraph, writing down the words that we would say if we were in conversation with that person. After you've completed this page, go ahead and flip to the next page. Number 7 says, put everything together and write down exactly what you will say for the phone call. It could be a phone call or it could potentially be in person, depending on who you're having a conversation with. As we all know, it's impossible to know exactly how a conversation will go because there's no way to predict what others will say in any given situation. However, if we identify specifically what we are asking for and then we brainstorm some potential responses they may have, we're going to feel much more confident in the conversation, regardless of what they say, simply because we practiced. So for the sake of this conversation, I'm starting off with some questions, and I don't know how my boss would respond, but I'm going to make an assumption about how she would respond and then continue writing what I think she might say and how I would respond in that situation. Mine starts off, "Hi Linda, I have a question for you, but I wanted to see if this is a good time to talk." In the event that she says, yes, this is a good time, I could respond with, "How are you doing today?" This is showing that I care about how she's feeling and I want to know what's going on with her. I'm going to assume that she told me that her relatives are coming to visit this weekend and she's really excited about that. This is a great time for me to take interest in something that she's shared. I might respond with, "That is so great to hear that your family is coming to visit this weekend. I know it can feel like a lot of work to prepare for that, but it sounds like it will be a fun time." After you've built some rapport with the person that you're speaking with, now can be a great time to jump in and talk about the requests that you may have. I might say something like, "Thank you so much for making the time to speak with me. Recently, the days that I'm able to see my daughter have changed, and I was hoping to discuss with you about the potential to alter my work hours so that I'm able to spend more time with her. I feel concerned that I may not get to see her as often as I used to. I'm wondering if it would be possible to leave work early on Fridays in order to be able to see my daughter since my time with her is limited. I do acknowledge that this request will require some flexibility on your part and some of my colleagues. I can be very flexible on what other days I work to make up for the time off. I'm proposing that I can work late on Tuesday nights, but I'm more than happy to discuss another option if that would work better for you and the staff. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my concerns. I appreciate your flexibility." As you can see, I added in some more details to make it flow more like a conversation. This is going to look really different depending on who you're talking to and what your request is and just what your conversation is about in general. But the idea is to just practice and get an idea of how the conversation might flow and anticipate some things that the person you're speaking to might say. After you've written this out, question 8 says, "When will you try to have this talk with the listener? If you have a planned time, go ahead and write it down. If you're not sure, you can come back and answer that later." For me, I put it would be next Monday after work. On the following page, handout 2.1.3, there's a scoring guide that you can use to check off the components of your conversation plan. If you have someone else at home with you, you can have them do a peer review and check it for you, or you can do it for yourself. You can now take this time to read your conversation out loud. If you can practice with another person, that's perfect. It'll be a great chance for you to practice what you're going to say and have them play the role of the person that you're talking to. If you don't have another person to practice with, it'll be just as good to read it on your own and feel much more confident about having this conversation in a real life scenario. This can be a great tool to bring up topics or responses that you may not have brainstormed on your own.